So let's get right to the questions. We have a question from a viewer in St. Paul who has indicated that the news media has reported some disagreement between Senator Bach and Speaker Thiessen about raising the minimum wage and what the legislature should do with the budget surplus. So what do they think is going to happen, and what does the Republican leadership think about this? So start with you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I agree with Senator Hand that there's likely to be a minimum wage.
I would not take that bet.
The legislative process obviously has disagreements, and with the budget surplus, it allows us to look at a number of options as we move forward. I think it's a good spot for us to be in, and there's lots of reasons we got this budget surplus, but at least now we can kind of move forward in a way that doesn't focus so much on the short term, but looks a little bit more long term. On the minimum wage, I think the conference committee met today, Thursday, and I think had a good weighing in of public testimony on both sides of the issue. I think they're going to be able to wrap up a bill relatively quickly. The differences actually aren't that significant, so I think we'll be able to get there. In terms of the budget itself, we've just today passed out about a $500 million tax bill out of tax committee that does primarily middle class tax relief, federal conformity, which includes a marriage penalty, which includes things like conforming on adoption tax credits, making sure that people that went through mortgage foreclosure can take advantage of some tax relief, making sure college tuition gets some tax relief. Those types of things, as well as moving back on those 3 business-to-business taxes. I think that's a good use of some of the surplus that we have right now. We will be doing, I think, the investment. I think all 4 of us probably agree on the investment in long-term care workers and increasing their wages. So I think there's a lot of things that we're going to be able to agree on as we move forward.
Senator Bach?
Well, that's the first time I've ever heard conversations between Representative Thiessen and I characterized as a disagreement. Frankly,
I just read the question.
Well, frankly, I don't agree with that. Whoever wrote it, I don't think that's very accurate. We have a good working relationship. We've got members that have strong opinions, and we have to manage that. So sometimes. Because we have members at odds, sometimes think the leaders are at odds, and that's really not true. I guess I'm probably the only leader that was in the legislature in the 90s, and it was a time with a very strong economy, and my first 7 years in office were pretty easy. We cut taxes every year for 7 years in a row, and many of those tax cuts were permanent. We cut income taxes across the board on everybody in 1999. We did it again, permanent income tax cuts in 2000. 2001, we did something very popular with homeowners. We took the general education levy for your K-12 schools off of your property tax, $900 million a year that cost permanently, and shifted that over to the state's general fund. And the result of those 7 years of significant tax cutting when the economy was very strong was by 2002, when Governor Plenty was elected, he was facing a $4.3 billion deficit. And I would argue, having been through that, the appetite to cut taxes got a little too strong. It seemed like the revenue was never going to quit coming in. And then starting in 2002, we went into managing deficits for more than a decade. And that's difficult. And whether it's in your home or in your business, the church you go to, if you are always managing a deficit, it's very hard to make good decisions about the future. So we went through a long period of different kinds of accounting gimmicks and loans, borrowing from schools, to try to keep the state's budget in balance. We didn't invest any new money in our long-term care and our nursing home facilities for a decade, and we're way behind there. And if you can't make investments in those things that we all agree are important, because you're managing a crisis, and I just don't want to reach so far on the permanent tax cut side that we find ourselves in a situation where we're managing deficits again, because I've been through that and it's very difficult. So I think the Senate's going to be a little more cautious. We'll know tomorrow when the budget forecast comes out kind of how much room there is to make tax cuts or commit spending that has tails into the next biennium. But there are a lot of ways to give, if the Republican concern is that we give tax relief to businesses, there are a lot of different ways to do that. Some of them don't require big tails in the next biennium. So it really all kind of depends on what the revenue outlook looks like tomorrow. And I don't want anybody to think the Senate's not going to consider tax relief, because I'm sure it's going to be one of the things that will be on the plate. We just might have a little different idea about what tax relief looks like.
Senator Hahn?
Well, I think, as we said, we think the surplus ought to be dealt with by primarily finding ways to return the money to taxpayers. We think that most of that could be done with tax relief in some form or the other. We think it's going to affect families. Some of it is business oriented, but we think we want to try to help all Minnesotans by reducing the money, returning the money that we have collected or projected to collect over and above what the budget is called for. And I think, Tom makes a good point that we've had some periods of struggling with deficits over the years, but from our standpoint, that reflects an overly aggressive spending regimen. When you have budget growth of double digits like we had this last year, 10% growth in spending, you can't devise a tax plan that will finance that. We think that if we found a way to keep spending in that 2 to 3% growth rate aligned with the economic growth of the state, that it would be manageable. We wouldn't have to worry about over-collecting, raising the tax rates. Normal business activity as it grows would generate those funds, and that's what we believe. That's what we acted on when we were in the majority. We think that has borne out to be true. So we're going to be looking at that. And the question was a little bit about minimum wage, and while I predict we'll have one, we're a little concerned about the aggressive nature of it. I think if we match the federal conformity, that would be a 40% increase in the minimum wage. We think that is probably doable and probably not too harmful to the economy, but there's no question, in my opinion, that economists believe that this does hurt job growth, hurts economic opportunities for people. We've got to be very cautious about how high that grows.
One of the things that's been the most frustrating for me, I think, is I always feel like we're talking about the wrong things in St. Paul, and we're not really looking at the problems and solving those, working towards a solution. And I remember recently reading an article about the city in the country that had the highest rent paid for average rent paid for a single bedroom apartment, and interesting to find out that it wasn't New York City or Los Angeles, it was Bismarck, North Dakota. And I keep thinking, in Bismarck, North Dakota, they're not worried about what the minimum wage is or in increasing it. And I think rather than do the things that we can do to kind of inspire job creation in the economy, we're doing things like raise the minimum wage. And I know that other states that have raised the minimum wage have seen less job opportunities for their citizens. And I think that, while raising the minimum wage sounds great, unfortunately it doesn't solve the actual problem. And frankly, it's just not fair to the people that are going to lose their jobs because of it.
Speaker Thiessen, I want to go back to the minimum wage thing just so that our viewers understand the process here. You talked about a conference committee, and the reason there's a conference committee is that the House and Senate had passed different bills in the last year, and this is all part of the same session. So there's a conference committee to try to work out those differences.
That's exactly correct. Yes, so the House, that's right. It was in conference committee at the end of last session. That conference committee didn't reach agreement, and so we could reconstitute it this year. And so they're meeting. I would say this notion of going to the federal minimum wage, that's actually not even an increase in the minimum wage in Minnesota because most businesses pay the federal minimum wage in this state. So that's kind of it's a nice thing to say, but it doesn't really reflect reality. It wouldn't be an increase for folks. And this point on the minimum wage, many economists, a group of 600 economists say it actually doesn't affect jobs in the state where it's raised. And in our two most recent experiences in Minnesota in the mid-'90s and the mid-2000s, when we last raised the minimum wage, there wasn't a decrease in jobs overall. That didn't happen. In fact, job creation continued to grow. And I anticipate that that's going to happen again because when you put the money in people's pockets, especially people making the minimum wage, they're going to spend that money. It's going to be recirculated back into their community. So, and to this idea that it's not really going to help people, I mean, that's just kind of absurd on its face because one of the things we know is that it's actually, if the federal minimum wage was raised, one thing we know from recent studies is that several 100,000 people would be raised out of poverty in this country, and I think that that's true. The minimum wage today, if you work a 40-hour week, you don't even earn poverty wages. And that's just not right. And at the end of the day, we can have all the economic arguments that we want to have about this, but at the end of the day, it's just not right for someone that's working a full-time job to have to live in poverty. And unfortunately, that's the situation that we have in this state. We're not even going to solve it with the minimum wage that we want to go to, but at least we're making progress in that direction. I think just fundamental values of fairness and honoring what hard work is about, calls for us to take this action. I anticipate that we'll take it relatively quickly.
But the same study that you referred to that talks about the lifting out of poverty of several 100,000 people also said there's going to be several 100,000 jobs that are lost, people who lose their job because of raising minimum wage.
But more jobs are going to be created overall.
But the point is, though, any business that you say you're going to mandate a higher cost in wages, that is going to come from somewhere. And if you're a business owner and you've got people employed, you're going to have to cut your budget somewhere else. You might have to cut benefits. You might have to say we're not going to hire people, or maybe we're going to have to maybe fire people. Who knows what you have to do? But that's what happens. That's the reality. So to say that this doesn't affect the economy or affect employment is just not true. Every business owner knows that's true. And most of the businesses affected by a higher minimum wage are smaller businesses. The bigger businesses, they already pay far more than minimum wage. So it's going to be small businesses, Main Street businesses, nursing homes that have come to us and said, if you raise minimum wage, you'll have to increase funding because we can't afford to pay it. So these things do have an effect. I think we should do something, but I think it should be modest. I think we should do it with the idea that somebody's going to have to pay the costs. And unfortunately, it's not going to be the state government. It's going to be consumers. It's going to be people paying higher prices.
But the economy is going to grow overall, and that's what we ought to be focused on.